The recording has started. I don't know if you all heard the lady's voice say recording has started too, but I guess I don't need to say it every single time anymore. Okay, cool.
We did.
Explain. All right. So yeah,
Also pop up to consent.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is the June 1st, 2021 Rook Community Meeting. And so we can go ahead and our milestones. We could take a look at the 1.5 board, since it looks like we'll be doing a .12 patch later on this week, I think. Yeah, that's this Thursday. Okay. A couple improvements for OSDs and MON reliability. Let's see if we can get that on the board here.
Yeah, it's been about a month since we last released the .11. I think I saw 3 commits that were in there for MON and OSD reliability. So I think it'll be good just to do, probably that would be the last 1.5 patch release. But yeah, we'll go ahead with that this week, I think.
Were there particular specific issues in the done column here that we wanted to call out there then, Travis? Or is this general, a few fixes contributed to those reliability fixes?
Yeah, I can add the links later. I don't know that they ended up in the 1.5 board. We haven't been very diligent about making sure the board was updated. And well, and once they're in the done column anyway, they kind of get lost in the abyss. So I'd have to go figure out which, or look in the commit history for which issues those were.
Okay.
Specifically.
All right, but either way, Thursday, we were planning on going ahead and releasing that 1.5.12 patch. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see how the 1.6 board is coming along. We have 1.6.4 also planned for the same day. And this board has many more things coming up as well too, since there's still being actively supported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. A lot more in progress, and I didn't get a chance to review this board before the meeting either. But this will just be the bi-weekly cadence to pick up the latest releases. And I don't know of any real urgent fixes that will be in this release. Just your usual patch cadence.
Got it. So this is on a regular recurring schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a 1.7 board already started?
Yeah, there's. I guess we haven't talked about the potential date for that.
Yeah, we should get that linked in the agenda doc as well too.
Right, and let's see, April was the 1.6 release. So May, June, July. So probably mid to end July would be 1.7 in my mind. Haven't put too much thought into that yet though, but that means we're only 6 weeks out or so from 1.7.
Yeah, let's take a look at the 1.7 board as the milestone is upcoming. You know, it is more than a month away. But let's see sort of what are the highlights for, you know, big ticket items, you know, features, et cetera, that we can either expect that have already been merged in or that are coming along the way. I think we talk about the Ceph cluster Helm chart later on today, but what other big big improvements might there be for 1.7?
Let's see. Blaine's got a design doc he has later in the agenda as well. For that would be 1.7. Or yeah. What else? I feel like, or maybe Seb has some, but then we've been focusing more on 1.6 and not so much on 1.7 yet. So I feel like we're about to turn that corner too. Seb, anything you want to add there for 1.7?
No, I haven't started anything for 1.7. Just focusing on 1.6.
Yeah, so probably at the next meeting we can plan to talk more about 1.7 and potential dates.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, did you like? I think I just saw something new from GitHub, like dependencies on issues. Am I audible?
Mhm.
Yeah, so expressing dependencies like this issue is blocked by another issue type of thing.
I've never seen that before.
I don't. Wait, are you or you saw that on my screen or
Yeah,
somewhere else?
yeah, on your screen. Can you go back on the
Oh,
code
yeah,
IG one?
yeah. That's the it's a ZenHub plugin is what that's coming from.
Oh,
Yeah, so I have
okay,
a
okay.
browser plugin for ZenHub, and then you could express dependencies and stuff like that. It's not built in GitHub functionality.
Oh, okay. I thought because
Unfortunately.
sometimes they kind of deploy per region, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm not getting. I haven't got the update yet or something.
No,
Okay.
no. Sorry to get your hopes up and get you excited, Sebastian.
Yeah, and you're in Europe, by the way. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't actually apply.
That's funny. Okay, let's add the
Anyways.
yeah, we had updated the roadmap here at least somewhat recently. So let's make sure we have that linked here.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so folks will start rolling off more dev resources to 1.7 as we are, have been focusing some of the resources on 1.6 patches and stability and improvements there. But we can see things in the roadmap coming down the pipeline, linked in the agenda doc, and next meeting here we could focus more on some of the planning or items and status and updates for 1.7 next community meeting.
Mhm.
Right. Anything else on the current releases, 1.5, 1.6, the currently supported patch releases, or 1.7 upcoming milestone? Okay. So this has been a long time coming. The Helm chart for subcluster, that's exciting. Travis, did you add that to the list or?
Yeah, I added it to the list. Yeah. So a member of the community submitted this PR for, I forget the PR number is linked in the proposal, that proposal link there, but basically it is merged to master now. I did some testing with it and it looks good to me. I'm feeling pretty good about this new chart that we finally have after it's been debated for the last couple of years. And basically you can put anything from the cluster CR just kind of into the Helm chart, just kind of takes the whole schema wholesale. And with some other nice things on top of it, like it can deploy the toolbox and a few other things. But since it is just coming out now and we're kind of still a ways out to 1.7, the question is, well, how can we get some early feedback on it? Well, people can test the master chart as of the last few days to see it working. But I guess my thought, haven't thought deeply through this, but to get more feedback, I wonder if it would make sense to backport it to 1.6 and get it in a 1.6 release and just kind of label it as experimental. But there are some alternates like Blaine's adding here, like maybe we have an experimental channel or something else. To answer that, I guess today we don't really, we only have the master and the release channels. Having an experimental channel is an interesting idea. But maybe we should just leave it in the master channel and say, hey, go try this out, because it is still early and then we need to stabilize it to make sure it's in good shape before we put it in the release.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I guess the latest note I added there is I also yeah, I think we do a lot to make sure things are backwards compatible in Rook, and I think that's a really good effort. This is something where I haven't looked into this a lot, but I can, like, if we do get feedback, we might be wanting to change the approach a lot and change things in the chart itself to such that it's not backwards compatible. So I kind of wonder if maybe it would be good for us to say that it's experimental in 1.7 also, just as far as the chart goes, to get more feedback, and then come back in like 1.8 and like hopefully everything is good, but come back with changes that we don't have to worry about so much being like backwards compatible. Although I think Helm does handle quite a bit of that for us. So I guess that's like kind of my idea around maybe we should consider it experimental in 1.7 also, and why it might be useful to have an experimental channel, although we could also just always have it on the master channel and then just mention in the documents, like, this exists, we're collecting feedback, you can use it. We do reserve the right to make some changes to it before it like is fully released.
And
Yeah.
what would that look like exactly? Like, would in terms of like the Helm repo, would you'd have an experimental one, or something that's not master or release, and then this chart would only be available from that experimental repo, would not be included like in the stable 1.6 or anything like that. You couldn't even do a Helm install from there.
I guess that was kind of my thought. I will admit it's not a fully baked thought. Like, I haven't like thought to like the final ends of it. I was just kind of thinking around just making sure there's some way we can mark it as experimental, or like note for users that it's experimental, so that they don't have unrealistic expectations of its perfection, I guess. But we do want to get feedback, and I think if we make a separate experimental channel, that might go against our desire to get feedback. I think it probably we might get better feedback if we just leave it in the master channel. Travis kind of mentioned that, I think. Or if there's just a way we can like denote that particular thing as, this is experimental, it's here, but just like be aware that it is not like we're not considering this a like final form, I guess, of what this looks like. Not that anything is ever final form, but like our attempts to make sure things are backwards compatible between like 1.7 and 1.8 will be minimal, I guess I would say, just to make sure that it doesn't overly complicate that development cycle as we're kind of trying to figure out what our strategy should be. I think that's part of what this is for me, is I realize we don't I don't know if we have someone with a clear idea of like what our Helm strategy should look like, or how like someone with like a deep understanding of Helm and Helm charts and releases and things like that.
Right. And I think that I feel like I agree that the risk of not being able to be backward compatible or is pretty low with this chart in particular, because we're just taking the Ceph cluster and updating it. We wouldn't, unless there's a major structure change to the whole Helm chart, then yeah, that's why we want to be experimental, because if we decide we need a totally different approach, then it's like we have to throw it away and not support upgrades. But maybe at least for now, I feel like if we just leave it in master instead of trying to do something with some new experimental channel. The channels we've got today really match the branches, so an experimental thing would diverge from that, and then we'd have to come up with, it'd be more CI work at least.
Yeah.
So if we leave it in master for now, and let's see if we can push the community for feedback and say, hey, try the master branch, let us know. But then they would just be trying it on master and not a 1.6 release. So it really would have to be experimental, obviously, for people trying it instead of trying it in some sort of production based on 1.6.
Yeah, I think we could update the documentation for 1.6 to say there is an experimental chart for the Ceph cluster, which you can use to use this with use this with a current Rook 1.6 Helm chart. Just make these changes to it, maybe. That way, it's like we are officially telling you about it and telling you it's experimental. There's just a little bit of a couple more manual steps to get there than just grabbing it.
Right. That's true, because the Rook version won't actually be as dependent for this Helm chart because it's just the CR, but the actual version of Rook comes from the operator, which would be on the other Helm chart. So we could,
right?
That's a good point. We could just tell people to test on master even with Rook 1.6. I like that idea.
And the intent for that is like more visibility as well too. Of people go to the default docs or for 1.6, you go to the 1.6 documentation and then seeing an entry, like basically I have to go to the master documentation just to even see this right now, right? So going to 1.6 docs, having a page here that then has basically the same instructions that we would have to point, instead of using instead of adding this repo book release, it would be rook.master, rook-master. Is the only way to get it at this point, right? So we could have docs in 1.6 saying install it or acquire the Helm chart from the rook.master or rook/master channel.
Right. That's true. And it would just remain experimental until and the doc page would say experimental in big text at the top. And here's how you try it from master.
You can definitely do that in the docs, yeah. But when we go to 1.7, since we don't have granularity over per chart in our build system, it would be all charts are just Rook release, right? That's this. They all go to the release channel at that point. You can't say this one's going to release, but this one stays in this channel. It's you cut the release branch, you run the CI, they all go to the release channel. So we want to be aware of that when we do 1.7, it will go along for the ride to the release channel.
Right. And when we do 1.7, I guess as our default position, I would like to remove the experimental from the Helm chart because people want to use it pretty quickly. So if we can get this feedback early with 1.6, that gives us 6 or 8 weeks. Hopefully that's sufficient for us to say that, yep, that's good, or if not, we could choose to remove it from the release branch in 1.7 as the worst case.
And there aren't any abstractions here, right? Like these are just complete pass-throughs of data down to the CR itself, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, and that's what you're saying. So the interface here isn't like we wouldn't expect there to be much iteration over the interface here, since it's it's just a complete pass-through of values down into a weighted template, basically, as the CRD.
Exactly.
Yeah, that feels somewhat low risk. And then like the documentation are kind of advertising we're doing about it until the 1.7 release, saying experimental and stuff. Could be a good compromise here.
I like that.
I think something we always could do once we get to 1.7, if we're still not sure about the feedback we have, is to just add some some lines to our like make files that just kind of like strip off this chart from like tagged releases.
Yeah, or basically
Or-
remove it from the release branch if you want. Yeah.
And then that would, yeah, then we wouldn't have to like deal with more complex things. We can just say, okay, like just if this directory exists, just remove it from the chart, and then we can have that only like temporarily for the 1.7 release if we want a longer cycle of getting feedback.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, Blaine. So as a means of not having it be included in the 1.7 release, essentially, and like being published to the artifacts in the home repo and stuff.
Yeah. But
Okay, cool.
let's push for the feedback sooner so we don't need that, but we can do that if needed.
Makes sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a great addition, though. I know people have been wanting that for a while, and it makes a lot of sense to be able to template the cluster as well, in addition to the operator. So great. CI improvements, making more steps to finally killing Jenkins.
Oh yeah, I guess I added this too. So we're getting really close, thanks to Shubham and Seb's work around all of these GitHub actions. There's a question, really, I think for the master branch, we've got everything running with the actions, and the only thing I think that's not pointing to it that needs to is the badge that we've got on our GitHub that says if the latest build passed or failed. But then the question, Seb had a good question, like, do we even need this badge? Like, it just, the only reason it's ever red is because of intermittent test failures, really. Should we just put a green badge there for the build, or what's the right thing to do? Seb, other thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't think this is really providing any useful insights, any useful details. What's red now can be green in 10 seconds from now, or the other way around. So it doesn't really tell much from the user. If I land on that page, I see build is failing. Well, what does this mean? Like, can I still use Rook? Should I wait? Where do I look for if this is going to be resolved eventually? You see, I think it's just I think it's good to show like badges maybe for security scans and things like this. Like the ones we have are good, but the build, I feel like it's not really providing any useful insights. So I would just vote to drop it. But yeah,
My only hesitation is
it's not like
it is
super reliable. Like
yeah. I was gonna say it's a common badge I've seen on other projects too. So I guess I'm curious because it's not useful for users. I totally agree. For releases, it's like we have the release, you can go use it. It doesn't affect whether people can use it. Right.
Right.
What's that, Jared?
Oh yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is that I mean it is definitely a transient type of data, right? Where it's going to change as the latest builds come out, and it's less of a upward progress sort of measurements like you have with other things, like the CII best practices and stuff that'll are supposed to over time consistently just get better and improve. But it is, I mean, it is a nice status indicator of, hey, cool, like if all things are green. I have another thought on that real quick that I'll get to, but it's a nice status indicator of coming in and seeing like everything about the project being passing, right? So my question is that I think that Jenkins maybe provides this fairly easily, and with GitHub Actions, is it a simple switch to a different URL, something really easy to do, or is it there's like some engineering work that needs to be done to figure out how to do it?
No, they provide badges already. If you go on to one of the actions, then you can create badges out of it pretty easily. I guess it's more like it's not about, that's not so much the engineering efforts required. It's more about we're just questioning whether it makes sense to have it. Like, is it useful for users to have that status? What makes it different, whether it's failing or if it's green? Is it just all about showing something nice? Then if that's the case, we should always go for something green. That's where
I think yeah, and that makes sense. Though. I understand. I think one of my biggest questions would be that if we had reliable tests and we were like almost always green, and it going red is like, oh shoot, it's red. Oh my gosh, somebody's got to do something about this. Would the badge have more meaning then? Would we would want this badge? I would assume if that was the case.
I mean, if something is red, then we know it because on every PRs, then something's. I don't
The
know.
badge isn't
I don't feel
the
like
badge.
I will look
Yeah, the
at
badge
that.
isn't the indicator. Like as the dev team, we don't, or as maintainers, we don't look at the badges, honestly, right? It's for the community that comes here. So
Yeah, but even as a user, I'm just wondering how useful that badge is.
I think, well, yeah, in general, I think the more green you can show, like the better it is for people to that first come to a README. Like, you know, like, okay, cool. What's this Rook project here? Okay, cool. It's graduated. Nice. You know, like the build is passing. Cool. Like these other ones, I'm actually more concerned about these other ones, like a Go report card of F. It's like,
Yeah,
that one I'm way more concerned about than whether or not we show a build badge.
oh, whoops. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to have alerts for
That one's
these. So we
that one's
actually
really
pay attention.
bad. Yeah, so that one I would devote any sort of conversation or effort into the Go report card as opposed to like keeping the build badge. I'm not married to the build badge staying there.
And license scans failing. And yeah, we should fix those.
I think it has been failing since we, I don't know, like it's only failing, always failing on release branches. We just never troubleshoot. I guess it doesn't really make sense why this is always
Yeah,
failing.
Foss's a little odd. You have to do some manual stuff with Fossa to get it to understand like your license tree sometimes. I've messed with that nonsense before. But yeah, so anyways, though, like I'm not against removing the build badge, but this I would definitely. Oh, that's funny. the only green thing for and Go on the Go report card is license. It's different than what
Okay.
Foss said.
All right, we have an action item to fix.
Yeah, it's only 2 issues though. That's odd. Yeah.
But everything's 0%.
Yeah, it looks like the thing is crashing.
Yeah.
And that's the source of the issue. Oh, out of memory. Oh, doesn't sound like our fault. Go report card giving us a bad lead. You shouldn't say F. You didn't really get the that's not very fair. Anywho.
Okay. Well, and I guess if we could put a build badge there that only shows the build step and maybe unit test step, that would be nice because that's reliably green. But if we're going to include intermittent build failures in that or test failures, I should feel like it's better to remove it.
Yeah, but I
Maybe
mean,
we should
even if
take that
it's
offline.
master, it's not like we're gonna merge something that is not like we never merge things that we never push broken images. I mean, if unit tests are failing or if the build is not passing, there is no way you can get an image. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, the releases are always good and not based on the failure.
I think that could be a good solution is to show the like build and unit test progress. I mean, after all, it is a build meter, although I guess that reasonably applies to the containers also.
That makes me think that like makes me kind of you know re-ask Seb's question of like what is the value to it if we're It sounds like we're more concerned about whether it's green or red, but as opposed to useful information being shown that like people would act on or make decisions on or anything. So I'd be hesitant to change it to something just to get it green. That to me is has less value. We're trying to. It sounds like we're sweeping, like wanting to sweep something, like something under the rug in that case a little bit.
At the same time, I don't think it makes sense to show red if it's an intermittent test failure. So then if you want to show the results of all tests, then it's frequently red because of the intermittent ones. Anyway.
I mean, it sounds like what's the value of it? If there's not value, if it's not doing anything valuable, then remove it. I'm fine with Seb's position on that.
Yeah. Okay, I vote to remove it then too. Sounds good.
Is there any follow up on this ARM64 runner needs to be done, or is this a note that's being added?
I just added that.
I think
note.
it's more, yeah, I still need to come back to it. I have, yeah, other things to do right now, but I think we have most of it. It's just that for some reason, well, not for some reason, but on the ARM64 VM, everything is running super slowly, it seems. And all the pods are failing from the liveness probes. So there might be something really simple we could do for those tests. But that's where we are. That's the latest update on this one.
Yeah, this is something that I think I saw with some like IBM machines also. If the machines are running very slowly, that means that the pods can initialize very slowly and the liveness probes can fail. So like if the tests are just going to run slow, we might have to change the startup delay for the liveness probes. But it also means that our integration tests might not be waiting long enough for resources to become available, even outside of the liveness probe issues. I don't know if we could get to the bottom of why the ARM nodes are slow.
I think honestly, the goal for me with this one was just to see if we could deploy on ARM64. Like if for some reason we have an issue, an underlying issue with the environment, and then we would know. But the goal is really to kick off the simple deployment and then we run the script for validating that the subcluster is healthy. And that's it. So maybe the easiest way would be just removing all the liveness probes for this particular test, and then wait for the script, which has long timeouts already, so that we can just have it passing. That's probably what's only missing for this one to go green.
Yeah, just a basic test that brings a cluster up and just sees if it's started.
Yeah,
not do anything else.
That's right
for now.
Mm.
Because there would be a lot of potential test timeouts if we try and use our test sweeps.
That's right. It's super slow, and also the goal is to run it every day. It will be a nightly job anyways. It's not something we can run on every PRs because we only have a single instance of it. So every PRs will just queue up and wait for it. I have the code for this already in the PR. It's just a matter of, I guess, removing the liveness probes, and it should go green. And then I'll just revert to make the build running only nightly, and that's it.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks for that workshop. All right, anything else on CI, or we move on to the remaining topics? Okay, so it was just a quick question I had for the KubeCon North America call for proposals that was last weekend or weekend before that one. Did anyone end up hearing about or submitting any talks outside of like the maintainer track for Rook that we know of?
I submitted one with somebody else for stretch clusters. I haven't heard of any others.
Yeah, also Rohan and I submitted something for deploying Rook on Multis, where on an environment where Multis is enabled.
Awesome. That's really cool. Nice. Hopefully those get accepted, guys.
I don't think they will, but
Well, not with that attitude.
I know, but I'm always super pessimistic with these talks. Like, if you're not super known or anything like this, then you're not going to get your talk accepted. And some houses were just not getting too much traction, anyways, for some reason.
Did you say it was with Rohan, like Rohan Gupta?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, put that on there. Yeah, that's cool. Well, I'll be hoping for them and rooting for them, even if you're not, Sebastian.
Yeah.
All right. And so Blaine, you wanted to talk about some of the design doc stuff here, get some feedback.
Yeah, so this is targeted for 1.7, but we yeah, this is basically kind of a larger discussion that comes out of a fairly simple seeming like bug question that I've gotten, which is if there is a Ceph object store, it's possible to delete the Ceph cluster itself and leave the Ceph object store sort of orphaned without underlying storage. And so we've been talking about kind of codifying the dependencies that exist between Rook Ceph's custom resources to make it so that if a resource that is like dependent on another resource exists, then we would block deletion of the other resource. So kind of at the most simple, we should not be deleting the Ceph cluster if there are any sort of resources that are referencing it in the same namespace is kind of like the easy metric for just saying, does this exist? But this document outlines the other dependency relationships that can exist and proposes to implement a like kind of safety check for them. The question that I have after this is something that I just kind of had pop into my brain walking around this weekend was whether the design should also outline a status item that should appear if Rook is blocking deletion because a dependence exists. So, if we're trying to delete the Ceph cluster and a Ceph object store exists, I think we should probably put a status on the Ceph cluster that it is not going to be deleted because something was found that's using it. And it might be useful to codify like what that should look like, or that is like also part of the design so that people aren't just like, why is my thing not deleting?
Yeah, hopefully we could still update the status on the CR, because if you have a deleted object, I didn't think they allowed updates, but maybe that's not true for status.
Yeah, maybe that's not true, Travis. Because you can update it to remove the finalizer when you're done with the deletion. So
oh, that's true.
Yeah, maybe status updates, maybe not, but I think you could do an update on that object, hopefully. And I think in general, Blaine, that part definitely makes a lot of sense. So for surfacing in a easily user discoverable way, what's blocking the deletion of the object, so they can go in and make any updates there. I would consider it events as well for that. In addition to status conditions, events of the object, so queue control describe shows what it's doing or why it's blocked can be helpful as well too.
Yeah, and that's also a good point.
I was also thinking, could we somehow integrate with admission controllers so that we could effectively deny requests and also output a reason why? Even though the admission control won't always be there, but still, I think it's also the good interface to catch things like this. And yeah, I don't know. We might have to, I guess, look deeper into it, but that's an option.
Yeah,
Maybe look also into it.
I guess just to phrase that in my own understanding, it should be possible to, in the admission controller, look at like what is like, if you're requesting to delete something, we should be able to see, okay, the user requested to delete this. We can look at if any dependencies exist and reject that deletion if there are dependencies. Okay. Yeah,
because I think,
I think all of I think that should be possible because there's nothing really. I think the things that I have outlined in the document, there's nothing that really specifically requires like the operator to be doing the checking. It's just looking at resources. I'm not sure if an admission controller can block if a user wants to delete something, but I think that's definitely something we can like add to this design as like further research and something that can be added on later as well. And I can certainly try to like implement the code in such a way that the like dependency checking can be called from another application in another place.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely interesting because you commonly hear about admission controllers, like the validating admission controller being used to reject an operation like create. I hadn't thought about it using it from delete, so it's actually a pretty interesting idea, Seb. And that's normally the best user experience you can get as well too, is immediate feedback as opposed to asynchronous feedback.
Yes.
So if that works, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if it'll work too, because honestly, I don't know that I've seen anything ever reject being deleted. Resources just always go into this terminating state and then wait for their finalizers. That's the
because that's
pattern,
they never maybe they never got intercepted by the admission controller. That could be the reason too.
Yeah, I mean that's why. So I'm curious if it works too. It's just haven't seen that pattern for deletion for other resources.
Yeah, definitely something to look into because that could be a nice user experience win. Good idea, Seb. Thanks for suggesting that.
Yeah, I really like that as well. Yeah, that just requires some research to see if that's actually something we could do.
Well, at the same time, I could easily see a scenario where you wouldn't want to block it with the admission controller, but you'd want it to go in this terminating state, because when you retry, maybe those other resources would have been deleted a few seconds later, and then it would just go away. But yeah, let's see.
I guess that is also a good point. One of the things that I've been kind of thinking that is nice about this is it does also, if you just have like one huge file, or I guess it doesn't matter if it's one huge file, but in my imagination, it's one huge file that is just all of your manifests for your cluster, and you just delete it, then it kind of forces things to delete in the order they need to delete based on like who is using what. But that's also not a huge problem if you're wiping, away the whole cluster. But it could be. like if you only want to remove like some part of a resource, it does force a deletion ordering, just by nature of how the dependencies would be implemented.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that, maybe, I mean, there is a flag to force deletion as well. So maybe this can be skipped by the animation controller if we pass the force flag anyways, or something like this.
Yeah, I think my my inclination is to add that as a like further discussion topic on the design, and then kind of handle that in another, I guess, in another iteration or in another design, or like at a later time once.
Yeah, no, just something to keep somewhere, like back of our minds, I guess.
Okay, but yeah, I will definitely add that as a like future work item to that design.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on the this dependency deletion design, or any other feedback you want to get specifically, Blaine?
Not particularly. It is kind of big, so I just wanted to make sure that I was flagging that it exists, and if someone wants to review it, they should feel free.
Awesome. Yeah, and link is right here in the agenda doc for folks that want to put some feedback on there. Okay, that's everything that was in the agenda doc for today. Anything else that's on folks' minds that's not in the agenda doc and you want to bring up for discussion? Okay, and if that's everything, then we can go ahead and adjourn, and we'll catch everybody on Slack.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Sounds good.
See everybody.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.